Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 82 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to think like an engineer using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee, poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the Sunfounder Elite Explorer Kit. Now, hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon, and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot simpler if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to teach you is I'm going to teach you how to activate and use the 3 gyroscopes that are on the MPU6050 IMU chip, which is on the GY87 module, which is in your Sunfounder kit. Now, this GY87 module actually has a total of 10 sensors. So far, we've learned how to use the pressure sensor. And remember, we came up with a little weather station that could monitor barometric pressure and look at weather changes as the pressure changed. We also developed a little altimeter where we could see what our altitude was with playing with that. So we had a lot of fun with the BMP180 pressure sensor that was on that module. Then we started looking at the accelerometers, and we were able to activate and use the 3 accelerometers, and we were using those to approximate tilt in both pitch and roll. So 2-axis tilt, pitch, and roll, we were able to get that by looking at the acceleration data. Now, there was some noise in the data that would come from things like vibration or real acceleration or deceleration, so we tried to filter out some of that. And then today what we're going to do is, so we've done 4 sensors so far, we're going to learn 3 more sensors today, which are the gyroscopes. What do the gyroscopes measure? The x-axis gyroscope measures here's the x-axis. This way, the x-axis gyroscope measures rotation about the x-axis, and specifically rotational velocity. How fast are you spinning around the x-axis? The y-axis gyro measures your rotational velocity about the y-axis. And then the z-axis gyro measures your rotational velocity about the z-axis. So we are going to be measuring actual rotational velocity around the 3-axis, and that's what we'll get done by the end of today. Then after that, what your homework assignment is going to be is to use only the gyros, the 3 gyros, and from the data you're getting from the 3 gyros, approximate the pitch and the roll using the gyroscopes. Now, we've already done it with the accelerometers, but today we're not going to be looking at the accelerometers. We're going to be looking at how to do it with the gyros. And then you probably can imagine seeing it coming. What we're going to do is we're going to then try to do sensor fusion, where we're fusing the sensor, the data that's coming from the accelerometers, and fusing the data that's coming from the gyros, and to come up with sort of like our best attempt at something that is accurate, fast, and low noise. Okay, so that is where we're going in that class. But what do we have to do today? We have got to get those gyros working. And I have done way too much talking today, way too much talking. I'll take a sip of coffee. I'll get out of your way. and then I will come and we will come over here. I want to start where we left off last week. We're not going to be using the accelerometer data today, but I want to bring along that code that we've been developing. I'm going to add to that code the gyros, and then we're going to continue to carry along where we'll be looking in the future at both the accelerometers and the gyros to do the things we're going to do. So I need you to go to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com. You're going to use this happy little search tool here, and you're going to search on something like applying a low-pass filter to roll and pitch calculations in the MPU6050. You're going to come down to these two little page icons. You'll copy that. We're then going to go over to the Arduino IDE, and we're going to paste our program in there. Okay, now one thing I should say about this is, remember in lesson number 79, I showed you how you could get more accurate results if you calibrated your accelerometer. And then what I did was I commented out the code that did the calibration, because you can't just copy and paste what I have. If you want to calibrate, you have to go back, watch lesson number 79, and then determine your X max, X min, Y max, Y min, Z max, Z min. You have to determine your numbers here, put them in, and then if you do that, then you can uncomment out the calibration algorithm, and you can uncomment out then these lines 60 through 62 here, and then you can be getting calibrated accelerometer data. Now, I actually had switched out into I kind of switched over to a new GY87 module, and my new module was actually very, very precise without the calibration. So I'm going to leave my calibration code commented out. And if you're seeing 5, 10, 15% error, you can go back to lesson number 79 and you can do the calibration. Okay. I feel like I'm being repetitive saying this every week, but you see, I don't know if everyone that lands on lesson 82, I don't know if they've watched the first 81 lessons. So sometimes I don't know exactly what someone that gets to this lesson might or might not have seen. So anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's see if we can run this thing, and let's see if this is actually going to work. Hopefully we can copy and paste. All right, looks like it is trying to compile. I like small victories in the early parts of the video. Gives me confidence that I can actually copy and paste. Gets me motivated to get on to the harder stuff. All right, so it looks like it is downloading. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up the serial monitor here. Okay, let's see if we can get the serial monitor. Okay, there it is. And what you can see is even uncalibrated, when I'm sitting here flat, I'm really just right at 0 degrees on the pitch and the roll. And so that is pretty good. And remember, we're looking at the raw pitch and roll. That's the unfiltered data. And then pitch and roll is the filtered data. And so I'm going to try to roll and look at that 40 degrees minus 45 degrees, and then I'm going to pitch, and then I'm going to pitch down, and then I am going to vibrate. And what you can see is the filtered data is looking really good. The filtered data is not vibrating, and the unfiltered, the raw roll, was what you saw moving. That was the one moving, and we filtered that out. Okay, so great. That's where we are. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to come in, and we are going to come in, and what we're going to do is we are going to turn on the gyros. All right. So what I need to do is I need to create some variables, just like I had float acceleration X, acceleration Y, acceleration Z. I'm going to create float the gyroscope in X, the float gyroscope in Y, and then the float gyroscope in Z. Now, what are we actually measuring here? Rotational velocity. And the rotational velocity is in radians per second. And so if I measure 1, that means that I am moving through 1 radian every second. If I measure 6.28, that means in 1 second, I went through 6.28 radians, which is 2 pi, which is 1 trip around the circle. And so what we'll probably do is, I have trouble, I don't think as well in radians, and so we'll probably convert this to degrees, and so it'll be a little bit more intuitive. But what it actually reads is, and you need to know this, is it reads radians per second. Okay, so that looks good. And then what we're going to come down is, and we actually got to put a parameter in for kind of telling the, to tell the gyro how to set up. So we did the MPU.set acceleration, so we need to do the MPU.set gyro range. Okay, and you can look up in the documentation, there's different ranges, and what I'm going to use is a rather low range, which is MPU6050, and then the range is going to be 250 degrees, and so that's like 250 degrees per second, so that would be going almost around the entire circle in 1 second. So that's and I better put that E in there, huh? Here. You know, that's pretty darn fast to go around a circle in about 1 second. And so I don't need to go a whole lot faster than that, because the faster you go, then the less precision you have. And so the lower you set the range, the more precision you have in the slower measurements. But if you were going to put this on, you know, like a cruise missile or something, of course you're not going to do that. But if you did, you would need to set this to a higher range. All right, so now let me look at that, make sure MPU6050 underscore range underscore 250 underscore degrees. And so that looks good. Now I want you to notice, remember how in that first lesson we set up the objects to hold the data objects to hold the measurements, and we set it up as A for acceleration, G for gyro, and T for temp for temperature. And remember how I showed you that even though we weren't using G and temp, we had to create those objects. And then the actual variables, the pointers to the variables, the reference is that we're going to have the data in A, and we're going to have the data in G, and have the data in temp. And then this MPU.get event, that actually goes out and makes the measurement. And then this, you go out and get the measurement that you already made. But if you just kept doing this over and over, you would get the same numbers, because that's just running out and grabbing what you measured. The actual measurement is made in this line of code here. Hopefully that makes sense. So now we have, and so now we want to get the gyro data. So I'm going to call it gx, and that's going to be equal to g.gyro.x. All right. And now the G is the object that I created, the data object here and here. Okay. And then the .x is the gyro that measures about the x-axis. The x-axis, the rotational velocity around the x-axis in what radians per second. Then gy is going to be equal to g.gyro.y. And then you guessed it, gz is going to be equal to gy, or g, what is that? That was nonsense. G.gyro.z, like that. Okay, now I have those numbers. Okay, now I really, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to calculate my pitch and my roll and my raw pitch and raw roll and do my all that stuff. It's just I'm not going to print it out. But this is going to be useful code in future lessons. It's just I don't want to print it. Now what I do is I do dearly love this print statement. And so what I typically do is I keep this with all the things, and then this one I go in and edit. I edit it down to the things I want to print. Well, what do I want to print today? I want to print gx, gy, and gz. And so I'm going to put here gx, and then I'm going to put here, that's the label, GX, the variable, comma, and then I'm going to put here GY, the label, and then GY, the data, the variable. Now, the reason I copy and paste instead of just writing this, you got to do it kind of in this exact way if you want those labels to show up on the legend. And so this one works. And so it's easier for me to do it this way than remember, there's a colon between the GX and the GX, but is there a comma? No, the comma is between this and this. And so it's just easier if I have one that's working and just use that. And so this should be big GY, and then this is going to be GZ, and then this is going to be what? GZ. Now that's my last one, so I'm going to keep one comma. So right, I do the GZ, and now I do want to set a comma upper limit and the upper limit and the lower limit and the lower limit, so I'm not auto scaling. Now I'll give you a hint here. Why don't we try, why don't we just start by trying 5 radians per second would be spinning all the way around the circle in one about. And so I don't think that we would be going any faster than that. So let's start at plus and minus 5. Okay. And now the moment of truth, let's run this thing. Interesting. Has no member. What did I do? Set gyro range. Man, and I looked at that so carefully. Who was yelling at me? Leave a comment down below if you saw me do this and were yelling at me. Set gyro range. Okay, here we go. All right. It's going. It is downloading. Okay. All right, now let's pop up and open our serial plotter, and let's get it moved over here. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to see if I see rotational velocity. So it's easy to rotate in Z. So I'm going to, Z is this way. So rotating this way is rotating about the Z axis. Okay, look at that. All right. But now what I want you to see is, do you see that nice big signal when I rotated? Okay. But what do you notice about it? It goes up and it comes back down. It's not like tilt that stayed. It is transient. Why is it transient? It's measuring rotational velocity. So you're only seeing the velocity while it's rotating. What is it doing here? It is sitting still. How fast is it rotating? 0. What is it measuring? 0. So only as I am rotating, do you get a signal. And now watch this. I'll try to go kind of fast, and you see if I go faster, I go like that. Okay. I wonder how fast this program is running here. Okay, I have it at 50 milliseconds. I'm going to try to go faster because you see how it was kind of like flattening those tops off a little bit, like maybe I wasn't really getting all the data. So I'm afraid I might need to go a little bit faster on this. There we go. And here we are. So let's see. Wow, look at that. Okay, so we see that, and that green was the gyro about the z-axis. Now let's look about the y-axis. This should be the kind of red, okay? Yeah, you see I'm rolling, and when I roll, now this is interesting. You know, it's almost like, whoa, almost spilled my coffee. This is interesting because it's almost like I'm flattening out, like maybe I'm hitting that maximum 250, but this sure doesn't seem like 250 degrees a second. Okay, but it could be at some point we would need to go in and up that maximum rotational rate range that it can measure. But this looks good. So I've measured about z-axis. I just measured about the x-axis, and now we are going to measure about this is y-axis here, right? That's y-axis, which is the red orange, and now about the x-axis. Okay, there it is about the x-axis. Look at that. So I'm going to do x, I'm going to do y, and I'm going to do z. And now let's look, like, what is some things that you notice about the gyro? What is some things that you notice about the gyro? It's very cleanly, almost precisely at 0. Okay, now watch this. If I got to do this kind of carefully, but if I don't rotate, now you see I'm putting this so I don't rotate, and if I just shake, I really am not getting any vibration at all. I'm not getting any vibrational noise at all, except the slight amount that I'm rotating as I'm trying as best I can to just shake it, move it back and forth straight. So what do we see? This is very much immune to vibrational noise. This thing is not an accelerometer. If you vibrate it, you don't get noise on this signal. Now, what were we fighting with on the accelerometer? We were fighting with on the accelerometer, it would interpret vibration as rotation, and therefore on my rotation signal I was getting error noise due to vibration. Well, something we feel really good about here is this is not susceptible to vibrational noise. So we got rid of some of that. We dealt with that vibrational noise a little bit using a low-pass filter, but now we have another tool in our tool chest. But before this is over, before we celebrate too much about the fact that this doesn't have noise, right? Like you look at this, this is a beautiful signal without noise. All right, it's not susceptible to vibration. The gyro data, the gyro rotational rate reading doesn't seem to be drifting, so this looks really, really good. But we'll probably find a few surprises along the way as we start trying to use the gyro data. And so that is what your assignment is going to be. And what your homework assignment is to take this rotational value and translate it into a pitch and a roll like we did on the accelerometer, but you don't use the accelerometer, you use these 3 gyro numbers and you calculate a pitch and you calculate a roll. Now, a little something you might not have thought about yet. You might not have thought about this yet, but what I want you to see is I want you to see that when we were doing the accelerometer, we could only measure pitch and roll. Why could we only measure pitch and roll? Because if that gravity vector is coming straight down, it is no longer perpendicular to the proof mass. As I tilt, I'm snagging a different component of that 1g gravitational vector as I rotate. Okay, but now I want you to think. With the accelerometers, if I yaw with the accelerometers, would the accelerometer see it? No, because when I yaw, that gravitational vector is still coming straight down on the proof mass, and as I yaw, the accelerometers don't see anything. But what do you see that the gyros see that the accelerometers could not see? The gyro sees yaw. The z-axis gyro sees yaw. So what you can do is if you have the rotational velocity about the x-axis, if you have the rotational velocity about the x-axis, you can calculate the tilt. You take the velocity from the velocity, you can calculate the tilt. So you're going to be able to take those three numbers that I just showed you how to measure, and you're going to be able to measure pitch, and you're going to be able to measure roll, and you're going to be able to measure yaw. So what steps have we taken forward? Now, as of next week's homework, you're going to have pitch, roll, and yaw, where before we only had pitch and roll. And now we have a sensor that is not so susceptible to noise and vibration. So we're getting a really, really clean signal. And so, you know, using 6 sensors instead of using 3 sensors, we're going to end up with a better solution. Now, you're probably going to run into some surprises, and you're going to just love the gyros, and then you're going to see why you hate the gyros. And so you're going to think, the gyro was the ultimate solution. But then part of your assignment is to kind of see what the challenge is in using the gyros alone for determining the roll, pitch, and the yaw. Okay, guys, I hope you're having as much fun taking this class as I am making it. I really love playing around with these little MPU6050s. I think I told you that in the early days, I had gotten some of the first patents on manufacturing techniques for these accelerometers and gyros. And so I was working on these things in the very early days. And I can remember those first days that we were in there just with these things under a microscope, just trying to get a little signal, see if we bang the table, if we can see a signal coming off of these things. So playing around with these from the very earliest days, it's just amazing to me what you can get now for a couple of bucks packaged in packaged in one of these little module boards. So it's been a fun ride, and I still like going back and playing with these things. They haven't lost their magic, and I hope you're appreciating a little bit of that magic as well. Okay. Also, guys, it's at this point that I always give a big shout out to you all who are standing with me on Patreon. Really appreciate your support. Thank you, guys. You know who you are. Appreciate you. Okay. You can also help me by leaving a thumbs up on this video and leaving a comment down below. That will help me with the old YouTube juice. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. When you do, make sure you ring that bell so you'll get notification when future lessons drop. And most importantly, share this video with other people, because the world needs more people doing engineering and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.